Boy, we had another technical difficulty. It's kind of odd. The screen just turns black and it locks up, like I had with the labor problems. But anyway, we can start out here. This is the variable overhead efficiency variance. Really no different than the labor efficiency variance. We're simply using measures for variable overhead instead of the direct labor. So we know that the actual hours are 1,910 hours. We know that the standard rate for variable overhead is $5 per hour. And the standard number of hours, this is the calculation I was performing when the screen went black. I kind of think it doesn't like when I use my iPhone for calculations. Somehow that seems to confuse the projector. So I guess I won't show you my calculations, at least on the calculator. But this is where I left off. We made 4,900 things. That's our actual output. And if the standard is 0.4 hour per item, that means that we should have worked 1,960 hours. And oh, by the way, the standard rate is still $5 per hour, right? So really what we are isolating here is 50 hours difference, favorable again, just like with the labor efficiency variance. So 50 times $5, you can already know the answer is going to be C, $250 favorable, just by doing a little bit of mental math. And you know, the reason I tell you guys about that is because I like to double check myself and occasionally find errors, certainly. So I'm already giving myself a little bit of a context that, oh, by the way, as you're coming up to your solution, you should expect this to be favorable because actual hours were lower than standard hours. And we saved 50 hours. 50 hours times $5 an hour is $250. But we can finish out the calculations just to prove it to ourselves. So I'm not going to show you my calculator because that tends to make this projector lock up for some reason. But you guys can probably follow along with the multiplication. Now I'm going to multiply 1,960 times 5. And that's 9,800. Now, you know, if you take this formula right here and perform the calculation, you will find that it really is negative 250. But I like to look at the absolute value, okay? Because the difference, the absolute value is $250, and then I like to just logically reason whether or not it's favorable. And in this case, it certainly is favorable because we saved labor hours. And we're going to call that 250 favorable. The last variance is going to be the variable overhead rate variance. So the formula here, very similar to what we did with the labor rate variance, is going to be what was our, as far as actual hours and actual rates. So actual hours times actual rate minus actual hours times standard rate. Actual hours were 1,910. The actual rate was given to you. Just as a reminder, this is a rate that you might need to calculate, possibly, in certain problems. So just keep that in mind. The actual hours gets duplicated here, and the standard rate is $5 per hour. Now, I can already tell you. Let me show you how I answered this question in about 38 seconds. Look at our actual rate is $4.90. Standard rate is $5. So we are saving 10 cents per hour. And if we work 1,910 hours, you know that's $191, and since it's a savings, it's favorable. So you can answer that question very quickly. In fact, as I was preparing for this video, right here, this is how I answered that question, you know, in 30 seconds or less, just basically saying, yep, we saved 10 cents per hour and we worked 1,910 hours, so that's a favorable variance of 191. But if you want to, in fact, you know, I'm going to just kind of keep this up here for a minute. If you want to, you can work it out the way that we're doing right here. So 1910 times 490 is 93.59. And 1910 times 5 is 9,550. Let's finish the subtraction with that. And I'm coming up with $191, which we know is favorable. So a couple different ways really to tackle these, and that's true for all of the variances. There's not just one way to calculate what the variances are. That's why I think it's so important to think about and to understand what the variance is telling you. And this particular variance right here is telling us that we have a favorable situation because the rate, the actual amount of dollars, the price of what we're purchasing is lower than we expected. And lower expenses lead to higher profits, which most businesses consider as favorable.